up until 2023, I had not been to Palestine. Like, what else could paint a clearer picture for you?
Because fundamentally, they're sick. They are sick individuals.
There's a large element of sadisticness, sadism in their society.
I can't sit here and pretend that these are people that I should be polite towards.
We're not going to let them crush our spirits. My name is Mohammad Saleh, and I'm from a little village called Tarshiha next to Akka in the north of Palestine.
And I'm Faris, and I am from Al Khalil and Bir Saba. And today, just having a chat, just a little chat.
Having a nice, productive conversation.
Nice productive conversation. Mohammed, you're a journalist.
Indeed. Journalist and video producer.
Yes.
Yep.
And you've done a lot of great work for the company that you work with, which I shall not name in case I don't know.
No, I work for Middle East Eye. It's very public. Yeah, of course.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about some things you've been thinking about last few days about journalism and journalists, specifically in Palestine.
Yeah. So we're recording this just a day after World Press Freedom Day. And what I saw over the past couple of days was a lot of people celebrating the journalists in Gaza, celebrating their hard work and their very important work over the past year and a half, but also mourning a lot of the journalists who have been killed. So when World Press Freedom Day comes about, I think what press freedom, especially in a place like Palestine, in Gaza in particular, under Israel's brutal occupation, the number of journalists that's been killed in the past year and a half is more than any other journalist in any other conflict ever recorded. So something like World Press Freedom, when it comes about, you think it should be such a brilliant thing. Like, press should have freedom, and journalism is such an important profession, but then it's crushed and it's silenced because of how powerful it is, because of how powerful Palestinian journalists are and their voice and their documentation of what Israel's been doing. And there's nothing, it's not complicated. Like, they literally, some of them, they pull out their phones, they record what's happening, they document what's happening, they talk about what's happening, and Israel targets them for that. So World Press Freedom Day, it is very important, but it comes about almost ironically at this time, because what we're seeing is people being targeted for this exact thing, for them trying to do their job as journalists, such an important job at such an important time. And they're targeted for it. And then you have, on the other end of the spectrum, the journalism that doesn't do its job as journalism. Our job as journalists is to tell the story accurately. If you see something happened, you just report what's happened, and you contextualize it. You add a bit of context to it, but yeah.
How many have died so far?
I think over
Killed,
200.
sorry.
Over 200 journalists have been killed. Yeah. Some of them I knew, and it's heartbreaking. It's shocking. They were so young as well. That's like all of them are. It's sad and it's heartbreaking, but it's particularly sad when it's somebody your age, somebody who you've spoken to.
Yeah, it's like you told me about Hussam
Shabbat. Yeah.
How old was he?
He was 23.
So it's you and him would have started your journeys together, and then I don't know if you were in contact with him.
I was, yeah.
So you were in contact with him, and you must have imagined that this is a relationship you'd have for decades.
Definitely, exactly. I hope to meet him. I hope to thank him and tell him how proud I was of him. Yeah, exactly. You're kind of starting your trajectory at the same time, in very different circumstances. Yeah. But you learn from him. He kind of works with you. You complement each other. He didn't speak that much English, so having contact with English-speaking journalists is very, very important. Yeah, he's younger than me, and I learned so much from him. But then, yeah, we started our journalism careers very, very similar time. But then his is cut short because of how good he was as a journalist, because of how brave as well. I really have to emphasize, these guys are so brave. They go to places where it's their life is on the line, and unfortunately they knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, you made a video, I think it was a few months back, where you asked some people going to a Palestine march about which journalists they like that really inspired them or like mean the most to them.
Yeah. And
we had several answers. And at the time I was a bit flustered, so I kind of I mentioned Anas Sharifan because he was in the north and he never left, and he went through so much.
Yeah.
But there's a name that I'm not sure if it was mentioned in the video, but it's, I don't know his full name, but Aboud.
Oh, Aboud Battah,
Yes.
legend. Yeah.
How old is that guy?
I think he's about 18.
Yeah.
But he, at the beginning of the war, he looked about 18, but now he looks like a 25-year-old. He's aged a lot. He's grown as a young man, but he does journalism in a very ironic, like kind of light-hearted way at times, but also he's very serious when it comes down to it. I think he personifies the people of Gaza very well. He's very strong, very resilient, and very outspoken and unapologetic, completely unapologetic about who he is and where they are. And it's crazy how well it's received across the world. Like somebody so young, 18, and he's able to tell the story of Gaza in a way that resonates with people across the world. But it's hard to describe. Like it's so powerful because there's a lot of irony in it, and he takes the mick a lot. Like he does actually say things in quite a satirical way.
He got famous because he would say the situation is iced coffee.
Yes,
the
iced coffee jokes. When he's standing on the rubble of his home, and in Jabalia, when all the homes around him are bombed, but they're still like, this is our situation. It's horrific. It's insane, but we're not going to let them crush our spirits. I think that's the biggest message that they send. Yeah.
In your correspondence to the several journalists, did you get a feeling of why they started their journalism?
I think it's maybe in some ways what anybody else would do in that situation. It's you're seeing what's happening to you, your family, your home, your people, and you have this phone, and you have a platform, and you can build a platform, and you can tell the world, this is what's happening to us. You guys need to do something in the outside world. And I think anybody else in that situation would do that, and you would try to do it to the best of your capabilities and do it in a way that you hope would change the situation and the circumstances for yourself, and the situation and the circumstances outside, for people to be moved. They want the world to move. They are literally, they say it. They're like, move, do something about this. Otherwise, we're going to get killed. And you guys are going to be stood around doing nothing whilst we get killed. And that makes you, in ways, maybe almost complicit in what's happening, or like you become useless in a situation where you have a bit of agency on the outside world, and you're not doing enough. That's how I think a lot of them got into it. Obviously, there's some people who, everyone uses social media in their own ways, but then when this becomes your life, you document it and you post about it in a way that you feel will have impact. And it's quite powerful. And I mean, if somebody did that and people didn't interact with it, engage with it, and it didn't resonate with people, then I think there would be a different conversation to be had. But these people have millions of followers. Aboud is 18 years old. He had 3 million followers. I'm not saying it's quantified by how many followers you have, but clearly this resonated with people. This was something that had a huge impact on people's lives. And subhanAllah, it's character. It's some people are blessed with very good character, and he has a very cool character. And as I said, it's the people of Gaza and Gaza itself in an embodiment. Like, not just him, many others in Gaza, of course, but we've always known the people of Gaza, with everything that they've gone through, they're kind of different. Like, they have a different, we say colloquially, they're built different, but it's because the difficult circumstances, they force you to be a certain way, and it's tough. It's very, very tough, but it forces you to kind of resist and be resilient in a way that is admirable. Very, very admirable. Many of the things that they've been through, I think many people who haven't lived in Gaza or haven't endured difficulty, they would crack. They would completely be finished, defeated. And I'm not saying that people in Gaza aren't. Like, a lot of people, this is too much for them. This is too much for anybody to experience. But they keep going because there's no option as well. There's no other option.
I think one of the most inspirational things for me is the fact that, like you said, they are documenting what's going on to get it to the outside world,
Yeah.
so the outside world can do something. But unfortunately, for the last 18 months, the outside world has done virtually nothing.
I would disagree. I think the world has changed.
Well, the world
in the
has
past
changed,
year and a half.
but
Yeah.
I mean,
and we both know the world has absolutely
when you're
changed.
sitting in Gaza and
Yeah.
the genocide is still ongoing, and you must feel at a certain point that people are not moving the way they should be moving, yet the journalists continue to push to push the message out,
Yeah.
despite the fact that, for all intents and purposes, the situation from purely material kind of analysis maybe
Hasn't changed.
is and it's kind of hopeless.
Because the way I would kind of describe that is these people in Gaza are doing their job. They're fulfilling their purpose. And as I said, there is almost no other option. But they are doing something that is changing the world. The journalists, the humanitarian workers, many of the other people there, they're doing something that is changing the outside world. And many of the other people across the world they're not fulfilling their purpose. Everybody has a duty at the moment to do something in your respected field, whatever it may be. If you're a journalist, if you're a humanitarian worker, if you're a doctor, if you're an architect, many different professions and skill sets, everybody could be doing something to improve the situation, to end the situation, the lawyers and the prosecutors across the world. But it is very unfortunate that these people are working very hard, but in the outside world, a lot of people are. We have to respect, we have to acknowledge that. The world has changed. The amount of protests, the boycotting campaigns, the legal work, the legal precedents that have been set for Israel to be taken to the ICJ and the ICC arrest warrants, and all the different campaigns that have happened over the past year and a half. The world has definitely changed, but I don't think the rest of the world is built like people in Gaza, to be honest.
Yeah. One of the most frustrating things for me here, at least about journalists here in the UK, is, maybe this is the BBC and the like, their obsession with seeming unbiased. But that leads them to, instead of, like you said, reporting the news as it is to make it seem like there's two equal sides fighting. And that, we need to give airtime to everyone. Like, for example, they would tell any person that would come on and say that Israel's committing a genocide, they'd say, yeah, but Israel would deny they're committing genocide. But they would never, ever say that if a Ukrainian was to come on and say Russia's committing war crimes in Ukraine.
Of course not, yeah.
They wouldn't say Russia would deny they're committing war crimes.
Their bias, the most prominently the BBC and other West, mainstream media's bias has been so shameful in the journalism field. In some cases, they've almost altered the English language. They've reported in ways that genuinely don't make sense. Their reporting is grammatically incorrect to cover for Israel. So-and-so explosion in so-and-so, where they make it sound so futile and so arbitrary to cover for Israel, because the simple way of reporting almost every day of the past year and a half is Israel bombed this place in Gaza, X amount of people were killed. That is almost every day of the past year and a half. But they will say an explosion occurred in so-and-so area. We're not quite sure if anybody died or if anybody was killed. Somehow we know from BBC that Hamas was targeted, but there's no evidence for that. They alter the English language to cover for Israel. And then you have the other element, which is media bias is not just how something is covered, it's lack of coverage. Lack of coverage is such a huge part of media bias, and I don't think many people, occasionally people do touch up on that, and you'll have a horrific event happen in Gaza or even somewhere in other places, the West Bank, Syria, Lebanon a lot of the time, and there'll be no coverage of it because that's part of their media bias. It's like this has happened, but if we shine a light on it, then the rest of the world will clearly know that Israel is doing such massacres, doing such atrocities every single day. And there's many other times when there's been huge media bias and the lack of coverage. I think what stood out for me was the day the ICJ cases, South Africa's ICJ case was brought to the, South Africa's genocide case was brought to the ICJ. And the day that South Africa presented their case, the BBC was broadcasting something else all day. And there was little to no mention of it. The day Israel presented their defense of that case, there was all-day coverage of it. For BBC viewers to hear what South Africa wanted to present and had to present, the documentation of Israel's war crimes, and that was just of the first couple of months of the war and of the genocide. Let's just imagine if BBC viewers were to watch that and presented in such a credible way, that would alter the perception of Israel. And then for BBC's viewers to just hear Israel's defense, there you go. They've provided cover for Israel, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this has just exposed the fact that the BBC doesn't work for the people, even though we, the people, fund the BBC directly.
Yeah.
And if we don't fund the BBC, we get fined.
Taxman comes along.
Yeah, taxman comes. But they don't work for the people.
Yeah.
And they don't inform the people what's really going on.
But maybe they do.
There's agendas about it.
But maybe they do. Maybe BBC audiences, this is what they want to hear. There's a massive devil's advocate, but maybe they do. We don't know.
They want to hear that Israel's...
Possibly. Maybe a lot of BBC viewers are happy with this. Maybe the people paying for their TV licenses are happy with that. Maybe that's what they want to hear. Maybe if they did hear that Israel's committing genocide, they'd get a bunch of complaints. And with that documentary that happened, the BBC's documentary on the kids, how many complaints were there of that? Because kids in Gaza were literally just telling their story.
Yeah, but that's not the majority of the people paying for the TV licenses.
We don't know. But I would be curious to see. I would love to find out if over the past year and a half, or even other horrific events that have happened across the world and other wars and other war crimes, if BBC's viewers were happy with the coverage. And a lot of the time BBC's coverage is inaccurate and there's media bias in how it's covered and the lack of coverage. But maybe BBC viewers are sat at their home watching it in the background. They're like, oh, everything's okay. Maybe.
But everything's not okay, though, because
it's absolutely not. It's absolutely not. But maybe
I don't think they want to be misinformed, though. Or misinformed?
No, misinformed is the right word. But maybe if you say to them you're being misinformed, or how do you feel about me being misinformed, they'd be unhappy. But the fact that they are misinformed, because at the end of the day, ignorance is bliss. Maybe they don't want to know that the Western settler colonial outpost in the Middle East is killing the Arab population there. Maybe they're just happy thinking, oh, Israel, Western ally in the Middle East, protecting us from X, Y, and Z, whatever.
Islamists.
Yes. Maybe they're happy with this kind of coverage. At the end of the day, if they weren't...
I mean, they're definitely not happy with the coverage on other issues.
Yeah.
At least the right wing are not happy.
Yeah.
But then, see, this is the thing, is the BBC would then come and say, oh, because these guys are not happy and these guys are not happy, so that means that we're perfect. We're doing the exact right amount of bias or the exact right amount of truth-telling.
That's one way to look at it, but I actually think there's a lot of arguments inside. Because I think you have a nice... I think you have a nice, not a nice spectrum, but a good spectrum in the BBC. And I think some people are hearing these complaints, and some people are hearing these complaints, and they're like, okay, what do we do?
Yeah, there might be a bit of
they took down a whole...
Down, though, but there might be diversity lower down, but at the
at the top definitely
level,
yeah. But they took down a whole documentary. A lot of decision making is behind that. That doesn't happen easily. As somebody who works in the journalism field, I know that, of course, for any news outlet to take down something that they've done, it doesn't look great, but it does happen. It definitely does happen. I'm not saying, oh my God, how did they take down a documentary? This is atrocious. No, this does happen because sometimes mistakes are made, editorial mistakes are made, and you do have to take something down, because taking something down that doesn't represent your editorial line is better than leaving it up, no matter how controversial.
The editorial line is that genocide is okay, or Israel's not committing a genocide. Potentially,
yeah, but also the work that goes into a documentary like that, and then for it to be taken down and not reinstated in another version, there's clearly arguments that are happening behind the scenes in the BBC.
But if you have someone like Rafi Berg as the kind of the editor for the Middle East or wherever he is, a Zionist who has created, or at least he's been reached out to create pro-Mossad propaganda. I mean, this is what you can expect. Yeah. And what is this? Because the guy was, so the main narrator was the son of a deputy. He's not even a minister. Was he a minister?
I think he was deputy minister, essentially he was a technocrat, so he kind of worked on the governing side inside Gaza, because Gaza is governed by Hamas, and therefore you have to have kind of, like civil servants or like people that work in the governing body of it. And I think the young man, the boy who was in the documentary, I think his uncle worked for the Hamas government or for the governing body in Gaza. But that's his uncle. It's not his dad. It's not him. It's not his brother. It's so far off.
And it's, the place is governed by that group.
Yeah,
it's like if you want to do anything in order to serve your community, you have to work with that group in one capacity or another. And all of a sudden, everyone's persona non grata because they have some sort of connection to that group in the place where
also Gaza is not
governed by it.
Gaza is not that big. Like most people, it's a population of 2 million, and there's going to be connections here and there. So it shows a large lack of knowledge of the system there.
It's not just a lack of, it's just racism is what it is.
Is
they hate Palestinians and they want Palestinians erased. I mean, what?
And when Palestinians do tell their story properly, and when it's kids for God's sake, when the kids tell their story, and it was controversial, by the way. Some of the things that they said will not please every Palestinian, and it's going to appeal to one side, and it's not going to appeal to another.
Not a single positive thing was said about Hamas.
Pretty
the
much.
Entire time.
And obviously, if positive things were said, that BBC would leave that out. So it's just they don't want to see. They almost don't want to see reality. It was kids telling their stories. A lot of it was so innocent. It was like a young chef. I think her name is Chef Rinad. She's a young girl. She's just telling her story of how during the genocide in Gaza, she began documenting how they cooked in Gaza amongst all the difficulties, amongst how scarce food and ingredients were. She just built up a name for herself cooking in these difficult circumstances. And that was her story. I'm sure the documentary wasn't taken down for her part, but at the end of the day, these are kids telling their stories. How can anybody have a problem with that?
You know what it is? The guy who was spearheaded the campaign, an online troll who has built his career. This guy's in his 50s, mate, in his 60s maybe. He's built his career harassing university students.
Oh.
He's got an issue with pro-Palestinians or people who support humanity who are under the age of 21. Yep. There's something wrong with this individual. He supports genocide, and then he gets angry that little children are telling their stories, and it's on the BBC, and it's showing the reality of what's happening to Palestinians. And it's absolutely aggravating. It pisses me right off, mate, that this... I'm going to swear, mate, that
Don't swear.
Absolute scumbag gets to dictate what happens on the BBC. Why? Well, what I was going to say before I went on that little rant. When the Louis Theroux, I don't know how to say his last name. Theroux.
Louis Theroux.
When his documentary came out,
yes,
a lot of people started posting it on Twitter because they were afraid they would get taken down the same way
of course.
because of the documentary they take down.
And actually, I'm quite surprised they haven't taken it down. Yeah.
Well, the thing is...
Maybe because it's about the West Bank and not about Gaza, and the West Bank is settler expansion, and it's the kind of the raw take and the raw look at settlers, not genocide in Gaza. Maybe that's where the bar is.
I think what it is they're scapegoating the settlers, right? Because the guy came in and he was like, so one of the things he said is, you're forcing the government to accept settlements.
It was one of the most candid and honest insights into the settler mindset.
Yeah, because the thing is, what she said then to that when that remark he made, she said, we're helping the government. Yeah. And this is something that he didn't really kind of pick up on, or maybe he refused to pick up on, which is the fact that this is Zionism to its core. Yeah. This is the Israeli state from its founding until today. Settler, expansion, regional domination, racism, apartheid. This is what Zionism is. They're helping the government. They're not doing something against the government's will. They're allowing the government. They're creating facts on the ground to help the government enforce and expand
its policy. And she exposed it. And it's been exposed many times. We all know this, but she said it very candidly. She said, Netanyahu and the likes of him, they have to appear publicly like, oh, maybe this isn't their policy, this is against their policy, but they're happy. They're happy behind the scenes. This is their policy. This is why a lot of them come into government. This is what a lot of them want to pursue. Bezalel Smotrich has been saying this for the past years, before 7th of October, since he joined this coalition government. This is possibly why he's in the government as well. He says the West Bank should be ours. He says we want to occupy the whole West Bank. These are things that they outright say. I don't know why people didn't take it as seriously when he is saying it on his podium as the finance minister, as one of the most important ministers in the Israeli cabinet. But then when Daniela Weiss says it in a BBC documentary, now everybody's woken up to it. It's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic.
It's because he says it in Hebrew, maybe.
Yes. That is actually maybe one factor. And maybe she says it in just a more cutthroat way. She's not a politician. Although he's not diplomatic about it at all. Yeah. So she says it very outrightly. And she says one very important thing, that she says, we do what the government wants behind the scenes and what it can't explicitly do. But she said that we make things easier for the government. We get things done. We increase the support amongst the people. It's a very, very honest view, honest insight into politics and into the Israeli political system.
Into the settlers, at least. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's only for those who are in the know. If you're not in the know, what the documentary attempts, or at least the perspective that the documentary comes from, is that Israel mostly is normal, and you have these kind of these right-wing fanatics, and they're doing their own thing, and then the Israeli government is forced to help them because they need to protect their citizens. Yeah. But it's all a lie.
But then settler expansion is not just in the West Bank, and it's not just happening right now. A lot of these cities, Tel Aviv was not an Israeli city.
Tel Aviv is an Israeli. It's a Zionist settlement.
They're all
built
settlements.
On Jaffa.
They're all settlements at the end of the day. This is not something new. This is not a new phenomenon that's happening only isolated in the West Bank and only by a certain group of people. This is what Israel is built on at the end of the day. The vintage archive footage of Jaffa and Haifa and Akka and Khalil and all of these Palestinian cities pre-1948, what's now there is a Israeli settlement. So these guys are saying,
because with what you're saying, people start calling you an anti-Semite.
Okay. But this is somehow people are a bit in denial, and they choose when to start history. They choose to maybe. Some people are very happy with the 1967 borders. People are content with Palestine or a Palestinian state being some weird fragmented body. No country looks like that. No country has a weird oval-shaped thing here, and then a tiny skinny strip here, and then something else in the middle. This is unheard of. These are weird borders. They don't make rational sense. It's very, very strange. So yeah, when you look at a documentary like this, it can't just be. It's not just telling this chapter of Palestinian history and the Palestinian story. It's really a microcosm of this whole 76 years?
77 coming up.
Yeah, mad. Yeah, it tells.
Even longer than that, if you consider the colonialism that occurred before the 1948 Nakba.
Yeah.
And the fact is that the Zionist entity is a settler colonial entity in its entirety, in its foundation. The early Zionists knew what they were building. They were building a imperialist outpost in the Middle East. That's how they marketed the idea to the imperial powers that they tried to get to help them, which eventually was the United Kingdom that stepped in.
Of course.
The Great British Empire. The Great British Empire. Her Majesty's Empire. At the time of the hit.
Also great these days, but...
Yeah, well, yeah. It's a shadow of its past self. Now it's an American vassal state. Not capable of doing anything unless Washington agrees. And we have this guy, Keir Starmer. Spineless, and as Mac Kennard said, soulless. And I think I tend to agree with him. And I don't want to start defaming him as well.
I'm not going to start defaming people. Let's talk about our our lives as Palestinians.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time, and both born here, I think. And being raised Palestinian in this country is an interesting experience.
Yeah, it's a very interesting life. It's quite a different, yeah.
Because I mean, it takes a time to kind of unlock all the kind of the bits of information about, about first of all your identity,
Yeah.
your history,
Yeah.
Why you're here,
Yeah.
why you're in this country,
Yeah.
this country's legacy.
Yeah. It's
Right?
ironic us being here, but yeah.
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 So, I'm not in broad terms.
I think it's a fascinating story. I think every Palestinian has their story with how they kind of reached this version of themselves as a Palestinian.
Yeah.
If you came to me when I was like 10 years old or something, I didn't know much about Palestine. I was very disconnected. I actually kind of like thought I was a lot more British, and I am very British as well. Like my British passport, does a lot for me, alhamdulillah. And I'm born and raised here. I live in London. I know London very, very well. This is home for me. But you realize when you're younger, and there are things that make you realize it. There are things that happen where you're just like, okay, what is it? What does it mean to be Palestinian? How much do people know about this place? How much do I know about this place? How connected am I to it? Is it home? Do I feel like that place is home? Despite a lot of us never having been there, even when we were younger. I've only been there once. So, and when I was 23 years old. So for 23 years, this place called Palestine lived in the things that I watched, the things that I read, the conversations that I had, the news a lot of the time, and this kind of like this place that I'm very familiar with, but also not familiar with at the same time. So it's a very, very strange upbringing, and there are many like little anecdotes that I could tell you. Like when I was younger in school, I tell people I'm from Palestine. They're like, "What's that?" And everyone's like, "What, Pakistan?" I'm like, "No, there is another one. There is, I'm glad you know Pakistan, but there is another."
How did you respond? Like when you tried to explain it, how would you explain to them? No, it's not.
It's not as romantic. I used to get awkward about it. I'd be like, It's kind of this little country next to Egypt. You know Egypt, yeah? And then I'd be like, okay, fair. If you don't know it, I wasn't that kind of unapologetic about it.
Yeah, what I would say is, you know Israel. You've heard of Israel? Yeah, it's built on my country.
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't
That's how I used to do it.
I wouldn't acknowledge that. So it's not romantic. I wasn't that proud of it. I was kind of like, when you're young, you're not that confident. You're like, oh, why don't people know where I'm from? Like, I know where I'm from. A couple of my friends, my family, my cousins, whatever, we know where we're from. It means a lot to us, but why doesn't everybody else know? Are we weird? Are we different? Like, are we wrong? Like, you question a lot when you're younger. And so when I was younger, I was very disconnected with it. And when something like in your identity is not that recognized, you kind of, I don't know, for me, I kind of like detached from it quite a bit.
But you're also a bit like you look like
go on, say
a
it.
native.
Go on, say it.
a native.
A native Londoner.
Englishman.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, it kind of is a bit of a double-edged sword, to be honest. So I don't look like my name's Mohammad, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, you end up. When I was younger, I ended up just embracing that side. I'm like, okay,
Mo.
No, I never liked Mo. It wasn't that cool. You don't. If something isn't really working out for you as a kid, you kind of just like neglect it a bit. And so I just embraced my Londonness, my Britishness, my whiteness, whatever you want to call it. I was a bit paler when I'm a bit tanned now, so no, I'm not.
Before you
that
went to Palestine.
Yeah, exactly. Shall I tell you about my experience with Palestine?
Well, I want to get to that.
Yeah,
but I want to just
how I rekindled or not even rekindled.
The thing is that like the Palestinian community here in London, at least, like it's a bit fragmented, where it's a bit spread out.
Yeah.
But like there was a bit
jokes. I love it. It's kind of hilarious. Like you have a very interesting spectrum. You have the people who think of Palestinian identity as just a cultural thing, which is okay. But then you see the Palestinian people, like the Palestinian community, who it's like kind of it's a cause for them. It dictates their whole life, and there's obviously Palestine is an Islamic cause as well. It's very, very important in Islam. Al-Aqsa is our third holiest site. It's like I believe that you can't do the Palestinian cause with leaving out the Islamic element of it. It's such an important thing. So yeah, the way people embrace Palestinianness always fascinates me, and I think past year and a half has made us not critical but aware of it. How are we representing the Palestinian cause? How do people display Palestinianness? What do they do for Palestine? Is it purely performative? Is it cultural? Is it the historical end? Is it an active thing? Are you representing it in the way that the whole spectrum of Palestinians would agree with this? Does it represent Palestinians?
Does it need to represent Palestinians?
Yeah, maybe.
Did you ever watch like cartoons that, or like shows that?
Which cartoons? There were some very interesting ones. Yeah.
Because there's this one that I remember. This one gave me nightmares.
He's not Farfour.
Not Farfour. But that's something else.
I don't know what Farfour is. All right. Yeah.
People are gonna go Google that now.
Yeah.
But this one gave me nightmares. Yeah, it was about this Shaheed, Mohammad al-Durra.
Oh, was there cartoons about him?
There was a cartoon about him.
Mohammad al-Durra for me is my first memory of Palestine.
Yeah?
It's the first thing that I was like, okay, this is Palestine and this is the reality of it. That's like my first.
When it happened, I think it was the second Intifada.
I don't know how young I was. Maybe I was a bit like, it was a bit after it happened.
For me, it was Faris because he shares my name.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
The image of the child throwing a rock at a tank.
Of course.
That's seared into my brain, man.
Of course. Yeah.
Always kind of.
Yeah, Faris and Mohammad al-Durra. Yeah. I'd be honoured to carry the name Faris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have the name Muhammad.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That one is very sad because for those who don't know, Mohammad al-Durra was a Palestinian child, and I think it was during the Second Intifada. I could be wrong. He was on the way to a doctor's appointment, as far as I'm aware, with his father to kind of. I think he was having nightmares or something. At least that's how it was in that little cartoon that I watched.
Was there a cartoon of it?
There was a cartoon. It's an animated cartoon. It's animated. It's 3D animation. It's very rudimentary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'll get into why it gave me nightmares. But
okay.
Then I think he was going home, and they walked into an altercation. So the Israelis were shooting Palestinians, and Mohammad al-Durra's father hid behind a barrel, and he held his son behind him. And there was the very famous shot of I think it was actually a Western reporter who got it. I'm not sure. But this went viral. Well, I don't know, they don't call it viral.
The
back
equivalent of viral at
the
time, of course, yeah.
And you see him trying to protect his son, and after the fighting dies down, he realizes his son's been killed.
Yeah.
And you just see him just slump.
Yeah.
And that was like that really.
Even like he looked so distraught by it that I initially thought he was killed as well.
Yeah.
Like it looked like him and his son were killed, but he was still alive.
Yeah.
And he was in Gaza.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure if
he lost more family members.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he's still alive now. Maybe yeah.
But that's
yeah, it was
difficult.
Yeah. It was one of the most striking moments, and it tells you, as they say.
And the story about human shields, right? They use their children as human shields, right?
Yeah.
And this is the reality: is you try to protect your children.
Yeah.
And they still.
I think the human shields thing is a different context completely, but.
Yeah, but like it just kind of show you like the kind of the dehumanizing rhetoric they use and how incorrect it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, this animation that I watched, part of it was essentially Mohammad al-Durra was having a nightmare, and there was an Israeli soldier running after him in a maze, and it's very dark, and this guy is just laughing menacingly. Damn. And you can imagine for a 6-7-year-old watching this,
that's like
it's it's a nightmare fuel.
Peak nightmares, yeah.
But it's kind of I don't know how I feel about that cartoon, to be honest. But it was.
You still seem traumatized by it.
I am a little bit, but it's
I
it's
used,
an
I used to be a
important part.
therapist, so if you want to talk about it, we have the right sofas for it now. Yeah.
I think it's an important part of kind of forming your kind of the reality, seeing the reality of
Yeah.
or how Palestinians view the Palestinian cause or the Palestinian issue, the Palestinian struggle.
Everybody has their moments where they realize what's happening, the reality of it. There are turning points, and they can be like individualistic turning points. They can be like a personal experience, or they can be like worldwide turning points. Like Mohammad Saleh, I think it shook the world. Like a lot of people realized what's happening here. Likewise, moments like Rachel Corrie being killed. She's a white, I think she's a humanitarian worker. She went and volunteered, and Israeli forces killed her.
Yeah.
These are moments that there's a clear narrative there. It's very clear who is the oppressed and who is the oppressor, who's the victim here. I think for me, there were many turning points. Like there were protests in London when we were younger, and I was like, what are these protests? Why are people so frustrated? And you'd occasionally understand what's happening. Sharon entered Masjid al-Aqsa, and people across the world are fuming about this. That's like really enraging, and it gradually paints this picture or fills this picture for you of what's happening. For me, one of the biggest personal shifts when this was like cemented for me was May 2021, when Sheikh Jarrah homes were getting like being threatened to be taken, and you had Mona al-Kurd and Mohammed al-Kurd becoming very well known for their home about to be taken over by Yaakov from
Brooklyn or whatever.
Brooklyn. Like,
if I'm not gonna steal it, someone else is gonna steal
exactly. If I'm not going to steal it, somebody else is going to steal it. Like it's ironic that I slightly laughed about it now, but like, what else could paint a clearer picture for you? There are many moments, but that for me was like, okay, there's work to be done here. There's a lot that needs to be done,
Yeah.
and your purpose is clear. Yeah. I think before that, as I said, I wanted to be a therapist, and then I had a bit of a career shift. Yeah.
Kind of refocused your efforts.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But up until 2023, I had not been to Palestine. Yeah. I was one of those cringe people who went to Jordan and looked over and like, see that over there in the distance? Yes, that's Palestine. And I'm like, yeah, bro, I don't know what's going on over there. Like, it lives very distantly for you until you visit it, until you go there. And I've always said this one thing, which is I think parents should always try to take their children to Palestine when they're younger.
Palestinian parents or all parents?
And now thinking about it, everyone, all parents, everybody. I think everybody should visit Palestine, because when you visit Palestine, obviously now it's quite difficult to go, and the reality in the West Bank and in Jerusalem and then in 48 is something, and then now in Gaza you have a completely different reality, and it's physically impossible to even visit Gaza right now.
It's been impossible to visit Gaza for years.
Exactly 17 years.
And then even if you did visit Gaza, you'd have to first of all, you'd have to go to Egypt.
Yep.
And then you'd have to wait to get approval to go in.
Yep.
And that could take who knows how long.
Yeah, exactly.
And then once you get in, is no guarantee you're coming back out.
Yeah. But any of those experiences, anything, trying to visit Palestine or visiting Palestine, anywhere you go, not gonna lie, I think visiting 48 in isolation, I think that's not a complete experience, because you need to visit the occupied territories. Anybody who visits Palestine, it changes their life, and it shows you the reality of the situation, and it creates a connection between you and this Palestinian cause, this Palestinian struggle for freedom and for liberation, because it's so clear, because nobody else would accept living in such a way. Nobody else would accept you want to go visit your cousin or your uncle or whoever on the other side of this border or this checkpoint. You have to wait hours and you have to be searched, and nobody would accept that. And you go and you experience it. That changes your life. Yeah. And so shout out my parents, but I think they should have taken us to Palestine earlier. But it is what it is.
Everyone's got their own circumstances, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Everyone's got their circumstances. Yeah. And that's part of it.
You went from Jordan, yeah?
Yeah, I went through Jordan. Yeah, the bridge. I've forgotten what it's called.
Why did you decide to go through Jordan?
Because Ben Gurion Airport is a bit long.
It is
Yeah, Ben Gurion Airport is quite a difficult experience. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of flying in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there's a kind of a pragmatic approach, or pragmatic reason, which is if you've paid for the tickets, flights, or whatever, however you got to,
Yeah.
if you pay to get to Palestine through Ben Gurion, there is a chance you'll be sent back immediately.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're
People
sent
are
back
sent
immediately, then
exactly.
then
Yeah,
You've
and
wasted a
Israel. I'm not saying they have the power to, but they do blacklist people. They're like, okay, we are not happy with you coming to our country.
There's a friend of mine. He's from Jerusalem. He doesn't have an ID or anything. He doesn't have Palestinian ID. But he's from initially from Jerusalem. Banned 10 years.
There we go. Exactly. And for what? Like
for just being there by himself.
Yeah, for just being there. Exactly.
Yeah, listen, just don't be.
So the asymmetry in power is insane. It's obviously a lot of it is unfair, but that is particularly unfair. The fact that this is my country and I want to book a ticket there and I'm not guaranteed to even get in. Like, that's insane. It doesn't make any
Even if you have a British passport, American passport, doesn't matter.
Exactly. Just because you have a Palestinian name or an Arab name. Yeah. And so, what was I saying before?
You went through Jordan.
Yeah.
Where'd you go? Jerusalem first?
Yeah, we went straight to Jerusalem and we stayed in Jerusalem most of the time. We went in Ramadan 2023, so April 2023. Which was fantastic, incredible experience. So we went to Jerusalem and then we went to a few cities in the West Bank. As I said, I'm from Tarshiha next to Akka in the north of Palestine. But my favorite anecdote of my trip to Palestine, we got food poisoning, me and my friends, and we had, in the last 2 days of our trip, we were meant to go up outside the West Bank and into 48 and visit Akka, Haifa, and Old Yafa as well. And we got food poisoning and we were finished, and all because we had some dodgy kufta in the old city in Jerusalem and it gave us all food poisoning. And it was in Ramadan, and in Ramadan, like, you just about have enough time to get your iftar and then go back to Al-Aqsa to pray Taraweeh and stuff. So yeah, we rushed and got some dodgy kufta.
Oh, painful lesson.
Yeah, very
lesson
painful.
Nonetheless.
I lost 5 kg that day, that week,
Goodness.
not that day. 5 kg.
I'm glad you made it out, mate.
Yeah, just about, alhamdulillah. And it wasn't it was the Palestinian kufta that got me, not the Israeli. Yeah. So yeah, it's very important, because up until that point, Palestine lived in my head as some distant thing. So you have to go and you have to build those real connections and meet the people and see how you get along with them and see what their day to day is like, and the reality of it. Like, the reality is, it's a big shock in some ways. Like, Jerusalem is got its kind of like system, and then you go to the West Bank and you see a completely different system. You see how close the settlements are to some of the Palestinian towns or the villages or cities, and the restrictions are insane. People can't, like, imagine in the UK, in London, we want to do an extension to our house. You want to do any modification to your house, you can just do it if you own the house, or you can ask the council for some kind of like planning permission. And
it depends on, but it's not that difficult.
It's not difficult. It's not difficult
to get planning permission.
Yeah, and here's one thing: you can build outwards. You can extend. You can put a porch on the front of your house. You can do something to your driveway. You can do. You can build an extension in the back of your house. You can build a garage at the back of your house. Whatever.
And this is areas where space is limited in London.
Yeah, exactly. Space is very limited in London.
You could have...
Yeah, and space is expensive in London, all right? In Palestine, in Hebron or Khalil, you can't build outwards because, for some reason, Israel says you don't have the correct documentation. Despite your grandfather having lived in that house or in that land, you don't have the right documents to be like, I just want to extend my living room or my back room or whatever just a couple of meters, just to give me a bit more space. In every other country in the world, you have the right to do that. You are good to do that. In Palestine, in the occupied West Bank, you can either only build upwards, and that's why a lot of houses have multiple floors, but it's just either one family or like one extended family living there, or you're not allowed. Because let's say you've owned this house, all the generations in your family have owned that house. There's no maybe actual documentation, or if there is actual documentation, Israel doesn't recognize it. Who's Israel to choose to not recognize it or not? They're settler colonial entity, but they're like, no, you don't have the right documentation to build it, to extend. They are in control of what you do to your home. this is colonialism, this is occupation. Like, that paints the picture so clearly. It's insane. It's like occupation takes so many different shapes and forms. The fact that we live here, the fact that we didn't know much about Palestine maybe when we were younger, or we have fragmented memories of it, the fact that I have cousins in so many countries around the world, this is all part of occupation, this fragmentation, this restriction on your life. Yeah, occupation is...
They control every aspect of Palestinian life there.
Exactly.
They control the water,
the water, the control of water.
The settlers use, I don't know, many times more water than the Palestinians have access to. And it's water that that's in the West Bank, that the Palestinians should be able to access. And if you try to access that water as a Palestinian, God knows what happens.
Exactly, yeah. They restrict life in so many ways. And then, in my trip to Palestine...
Producers just told us that there is videos of settlers digging out the wells and then using them as slides and swimming pools. So if we can get that video up, that would be great to show. But this is just another way in the settlers the settlers, they don't know the value of the land that they said, the value of the relationship that humans should have with the land that they're on. They just see it as a means to an end of Jewish supremacist expansion.
They claim to have their connection to it, but the original owner of the land would always treat it differently. The olive trees is always a big example of it, and the olive farming. The olive farming is such a big aspect of Palestinian life, especially in certain towns where this is the export of the town, and this is part of the agricultural land. And it's weird because, like, in many other places, unless you're a farmer, unless you work in agriculture, a tree won't mean that much to you. But for these Palestinian people, this tree means a lot to them. It's part of their livelihood. There's a connection to it. But then you have settlers coming along and burning these trees because they're Palestinian trees.
And these trees are sometimes several hundred years old.
Exactly. This is like, there's erasing history there. There's erasing just a natural resource, which is just giving you olives and olive oil. Like, this is so not offensive. But because it's a Palestinian tree, because these are settlers who live couple miles down in some random Israeli settlement, it becomes like a target. Like, how is a tree a target? This is insane. So a lot of it doesn't make any sense. And so the treatment of the land, of the occupier, the original occupier of the land, the original inhabitant or resident of the land, is so different to somebody who's come along.
And it's like, you can't just stop at restricting access to the tree. You have to burn them. You have to burn them.
Exactly.
You could just create a fence. Just build a fence.
Yeah. No, don't build a fence.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like they could do like what a normal human being with a functioning brain would do when you're trying to, make someone's life living hell.
Yeah.
All right. Block their access, but they have to take that extra step. They have to burn the trees.
Because because
fundamentally they're sick. They are sick individuals who do not see Palestinians as human beings, who view themselves as God's gift to earth, even though they're despicable. They're despicable. They're disgusting, mate.
I agree.
They celebrate the burning of Palestinian babies. They go to the peripheries of Gaza, they sit down, they erect these camps, and they watch on and they cheer and they sing as Palestinians are burned alive. And I can't sit here and pretend that these are people that I should be polite towards, or people that I shouldn't. I'm gonna curse them. They deserve to be cursed at. That's what they deserve. They're filthy, they're despicable, and they are sick. They're sick in the head.
I think the past years, especially with social media, has exposed there's a large element of sadism in their society, and we've seen that on an unprecedented level, and we've seen it on a scale that we've only seen in kind of maybe small snippets elsewhere. Like, I think the Abu Ghraib, is it Abu Ghraib? Yeah, it's called Abu Ghraib.
I think so.
Yeah? I think the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq.
Abu Ghraib, yeah.
Yeah. I think that gave us a small snippet. It was a couple of pictures of maybe years of torture in these prisons, but it shows this sadistic mindset that that isn't normal is absolutely like, it's so sickening, and we're seeing that now, not in small snippets, in quite a large way across the society.
Yeah, but
And
they had a rapist. The guy's literally, there's videos of this individual and a group of Israeli soldiers raping a man, a Palestinian man. They made a celebrity out of him.
yeah, he was platformed.
They made him a celebrity.
Yeah, he was platformed, and in there they had people protesting and kind of raiding a court or a prison against the imprisonment or the trial of these rapists. They're not protesting the rapists, they're protesting the trial of the rapists. This is insane. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's so, if you just look at it rationally, which everybody does, it doesn't make any sense, and it's sickening. And then you have the element, which is a lot of these people who do these war crimes, who commit these crimes, are then able to walk freely.
Yeah.
And now you have organizations and institutions who are holding these people accountable, who are saying anybody who served in the Israeli military, in the battalions or in the parts of the army that operated in Gaza and operated the flights and the air force shouldn't be treated normally and should be held accountable, or their travel should be restricted, and if not, they could be arrested. And this is accountability, because this is just accountability, because somebody who's committed such crimes, especially like sexual violence and sexual assault, and the mass killings, they shouldn't be considered normal, and everybody should feel uncomfortable around them and of the prospect of them being able to travel freely. And we're seeing it on institutional levels, and then on individual levels. Some Israeli soldiers, they go to Thailand and they try to live their normal holiday, and they're like, oh, I just need a break from bombing kids in Gaza
and dressing up with Palestinian women's underwear
and raiding their homes and looting their stuff, and they're like, oh, I just need a bit of time in the lovely beaches of Thailand. And then you have other normal tourists who are like, yo, what the hell is going on here? We don't want to be on holiday next to these sickos, okay?
Yeah.
And it's finally happening. It's
you just reminded me of that clip from the
and let me just add that this should have been done for many other people who committed many other crimes across history. The people who committed those crimes in the Abu Ghraib prisons, and then similarly in the Sednaya prison in Syria, the people who committed those horrific, disgusting crimes, they shouldn't be allowed to walk freely, and accountability should get them.
No,
100%.
100%. You remind me of the clip from the World Cup? The World Cup. Yeah.
World Cup was incredible.
Yeah.
The way they were.
Some guy is, I don't know where he's from. Maybe he was South American or European.
Yeah.
He's just given some commentary about two teams playing. One of them was Israel.
Yeah.
And he was praising the Israeli team. And then these two Israelis walk by. They just heard the term Israel, and they start telling him to stop talking. They aggravate him, and they turned him into. He was apolitical. They turned him pro-Palestine.
Who was like free Palestine.
Yeah, he was praising the Israeli team.
What do you say? No politic here.
Yeah, no politic here.
Yeah,
no politic
and then
here.
the guy was like, nope, not having it. It was crazy how it just showed that they kind of brought it to themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the World Cup taking place in Qatar and amongst so many Arabs and the South Americans, they absolutely backed it. People from Brazil and Chile and Colombia.
Maybe it was the Olympics, actually. I don't know. But the World Cup, sorry.
That was in the Olympics, yeah. That was in the Olympics. But the World Cup was a great moment. And this was before all of this insanity happened as well. Where it showed that people are not happy with...
And this was before the genocide.
Of course, exactly, yeah. People were not happy with them being next to Israelis and people who supported Israel. It's like... And it was interesting because this World Cup was the most wholesome World Cup ever. It was in such a small location. All of the stadiums were like a couple of miles apart. It was almost like a family vibe. Yeah,
despite the propaganda and whatnot.
Despite them being like, oh, Qatar is, like... Actually, there was quite a few not great things, but they tried to label this World Cup as it's discriminating against certain people, and
as if it's any different from any other World Cup. Like,
exactly.
Where was all this outrage in Brazil
picked,
when Brazil happened? You know what I'm saying?
And Russia. There was a World Cup in Russia. they particularly picked on this World Cup, and then it ended up being the best World Cup, and it was the most wholesome World Cup. And it showed that Israel is isolated even before they committed genocide, and even like before they became this absolute pariah state that they are. It showed that they were a pariah state, because people who know are like, no, this doesn't fit in this wholesome setting that we're in. It doesn't fit in, everybody's proud of their countries, and their countries don't represent apartheid and injustice like that. And then these Israelis come along, and they're like, and the Israeli media that went, and they were like, we're interviewing for an Israeli channel. People are like, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to be associated with you. We don't want that not wanting to be associated with somebody. That's a big precedent to set, and that shows that these guys are not normal, and you shouldn't normalize. It's great to use that word, normalization. You shouldn't normalize apartheid and injustice on this setting, on this scale, and people in Gaza being locked up for 17 years before any of this happened. People being locked up and access being restricted to everybody. People from Gaza who are living outside of Gaza can't go and visit their families. People in Gaza, their calories and the intake is restricted by Israel, who's occupying it.
That was in 2012.
And that was in 2012, exactly.
Yeah.
All of that built up, and we saw it in the World Cup, and we continue to see it, that people don't see Israel normally.
Yeah, but we still get normalization from certain states.
Exactly.
In the Arab world. The UAE, the most despicable. It's the devil. It's the devil's den. I don't know, the devil's nest? I don't know what the term is. It is...
Shout out Dubai chocolate, though.
Dubai chocolate. Someone was saying that Dubai chocolate is like the epitome of Dubai. It's not natural. You have to keep it in the fridge. All right, that's like in Dubai. You have to.
That's
be
like all chocolate.
Yeah, no, not all chocolate.
Yeah, you don't have to keep the chocolate in the fridge.
Why is it called Dubai chocolate, bruv? It's got pistachios on. They're not
because it's excessive, and because it's just overindulgence.
The thing is with the United Arab Emirates, right, and these normalizer countries, these treacherous countries such as the UAE, is they are police states, right, and they do not allow freedom of expression that contradicts what the official Abu Dhabi line is, right? So when you see Emirati influencers going out and then sending kind regards to the murderous, genocidal, apartheid Zionist entity on the so-called day of its founding, right? It's National Genocide Day, Independence Day, whatever, right? And you have these Emiratis making videos and saying, "Oh, we love Israel and we hope you have a happy Independence Day." And
independence from what? Like
what? How can you?
I said this at the start of this war, the genocide that's happening, and I'll continue with this line: you can't normalize with something that's not normal.
It's not normal. This was not normal.
That's not normal. What are you normalizing? Are you normalizing apartheid? Are you normalizing now genocide? Are you normalizing settler colonialism? Are you normalizing stealing homes? Are you normalizing the killing of children? You can't normalize. No matter who you are, no matter what you're trying to kind of achieve, what are you normalizing with? And what does that say about you? You know, what does that say about a state or an individual who's trying to normalize this?
18 months, they still have an Israeli ambassador in the UAE.
Yeah.
IDF soldiers go on holiday in Dubai.
Yeah, I saw that.
They had an iftar in Ramadan. They invited Israelis, war criminals, genocidaires, genocide extraordinaires to come and have iftar with them.
Yeah.
Is this iftar even valid at this point? Are you... I'm going to stop there.
So, essentially, again, it's not just the... Let me start that again. Essentially, trying to normalize something that isn't normal is just all part and parcel of the way that Palestine does expose a lot of people and a lot of states and a lot of individuals.
It's a litmus test.
It is a litmus test.
For
yeah,
for liberals.
For many people, because But it's an easy litmus test. That's the problem. That's the thing. It's crystal clear. Like young people, I'm not saying that young people are not smart. Young people are fantastic, but young people they're so clear on their stance. They're like, no, what's happening is unacceptable. It's obviously changed a lot because of social media, and because social media gives you things very raw and unedited and unfiltered. But how are you trying to tell the world or tell something that something is normal when I've seen it with my own eyes?
You know what I think about it?
You can't hit me and then tell me you haven't just hit me, or hitting me is okay. Like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. The thing about social media as well, though, is that they are actively suppressing the Palestine, and even with the suppression, even with closing Palestinian accounts, it's still
the message still gets out.
It gets out and enforced. Like it can't. Of course, they can't stop it in any way, shape,
and
or
that's
form.
what frustrates them.
Really
they
does.
built all of these platforms and all of these kind of like institutions to try and distract the world away from this and try and push a certain agenda, and then now it's come back to bite them in the back, which is fantastic. And it's amazing to see such tools utilized in such useful ways. Oftentimes social medias can be a bit useless, and now we joke about brain rot content, but then at the same time it's utilized in a way that undeniably has changed the world, and that is it's amazing. It's at the end of the day, social media, like many things, is a tool. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad. People use it for very weird propaganda content and all of this nonsense, but then you have the honorable people who use it to convey the truth and to just simply get the message out there and to try and change the world, which is very brutal. We live in such a horrific world right now, whether it's, you know, what's happening in America, and now, mashallah, we have Trump administration round 2, which is going insane.
Great.
People are frustrated, and people are trying to use the tools that they have access to change that. And there's a pushback, but people have now realized, and I think what's happened in Gaza has woken people up to kind of a level that we haven't seen in many, many years. I think the last like global awakening moment or uprising moment had to be something like Black Lives Matter, or before that, maybe things like the Iraq War, and what else has happened recently in history in our lifetimes?
Iraq, Afghanistan. In Palestine, the thing with Palestine is up until this genocide, it's like there'd be waves, right? Every time there was a war. Yeah. But I mean, like you've mentioned,
but this
changed everything.
It did. Yeah. SubhanAllah. And so, it goes back to, and this is where like, I don't know if you want me to offer like advice and stuff, but okay, I shouldn't offer advice. Who am I to offer advice? But it's just that everybody should be doing something within their capacity. Everybody has a skill set or a platform of some sort, or or connections, or a position that they're in, and everybody should try to utilize that to do what they can to help the situation. And I've always said the reality of it is whatever. Like a lot of people won't be able to stop the bombs dropping, and they won't be able to stop the killing and the destruction, but you will be able to at some point maybe hold people accountable, or change public perception, or just convey the truth. And the truth is, it speaks for itself. Yeah. So everybody should try to do the things within their avenues.
People need to keep in mind that when these large world-shattering changes occur, and the liberation of Palestine will inshallah be one of those events. Inshallah. It's a matter of reaching critical mass. Like these things, don't happen. Like I think there's a quote by some leftist or another, I don't know. Very credible. Or it might be someone. It might be someone else.
It might be somebody who's not leftist.
It might be my dad. I don't know.
Your dad. That's more correct.
It's like there are years in which nothing happens, or like, and then there are days in which decades happen. Something like that. I don't know.
You could have just gone with the quote. Why'd you have to introduce it in that way?
I don't know.
Some leftist once, when he was talking, he said, but I agree. Yeah. Like the past year and a half feels like decades. It feels so long, and it feels like so much happens.
So much has
every single day. Every single day something happens. Huh?
Lenin. See, it was a leftist. It was Lenin. I told you he was a leftist.
Man like Lenin.
Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir?
Yeah.
Russian.
Yeah.
Lenin. What's the actual quote?
So what you said was close.
It's close.
سنين
There are decades where nothing happens.
And there are weeks where decades happen.
And there are weeks where decades happen. There you go.
Very nice.
That's a lot better than what I said, I have to be honest.
Do you want to do it again?
No. We're keeping all that
Give it a
in.
nice.
That's all staying in.
Give it a nice, completely like.
I want to go back to like talking about growing up and stuff. And one thing that, or a symbol rather, that was very prominent, at least when we were growing up, is Handala,
Yeah.
the cartoon created by Najil Ali.
Yeah.
And it's a cartoon. It's a drawing of a boy with some interesting looking hair, and he is looking away from the viewer.
He's got his back face to the world.
And Najil Ali created this character with the intention to draw him looking towards the viewer once Palestine is liberated. And Najil Ali was assassinated before he could see liberation of Palestine.
Before he could see his caricature turned back to the world.
Yeah.
And I think, as you mentioned before, there's kind of waves in the past few years where you'd feel like the world would refocus its attention towards Palestine. And I remember almost each time somebody would redraw Handala with kind of like his face starting to turn to the world. Like, are you guys paying attention? Are you guys realizing what's happening? And then it's almost poetic that, in a sad way, that no, actually the world didn't refocus its attention completely, and therefore you'd kind of continue, like it would be an unspoken thing that you'd continue that actually the Palestinian children will now they feel neglected once again, and that was the parts in the middle where actually occupation was continuing as it is, life would be continuously miserable, and the world would refocus its attention, everybody would go back to their day-to-day lives, and Palestine would be this forgotten thing. It was a very important symbol when we were younger.
Still an important.
Yeah, continues to be, because it shows that you can't dehumanize people in that way and it be acceptable. And it's sad that nobody should feel that neglected. And it should, Handala should represent not just the Palestinian people and Palestinian children. It should represent people in so many other countries where injustice happens and the world is just continuing its lives, and it's like people are just going about their days normally as if nothing's happening. And so it was this very prominent thing that it's an enigma. It kind of like it grabs your attention in a way that why is this kid got his back turned to the world? It's because the world has turned its back on Handala, turned its back on the Palestinian children who, subhanAllah, they're so bright, there's so much like energy and so much they're so intelligent, some of these children. Like Gaza before and continues to, it had the highest literacy rate in it, like I think per capita in the world. It had one of the highest literacy rates. It shows that these are people that there's so much potential, there's so much life, but the system that Israel puts them under is so unjust. It's so dehumanizing. And as I always say, like nobody else would accept it for themselves.
One aspect that I think is important, at least the fact, you know, he drew a child, and you have what you talked about, which is the children that have been neglected. And there's also the aspect of the Palestinian cause being transcending generations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not that this cause is going to die with the elder generation.
Yeah.
No, the future generations will continue to struggle for the liberation of their homeland. You know, my grandfather was struggling against the Zionist the Zionist invasion, and that was kind of that sentiment was passed down to my father, and our generation today and the future generation. I mean, one thing that the Zionists, I think, whether they understand or don't understand, I don't really care, to be honest, anymore, but we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
مش راح ننسى.
Yeah. We won't forget, of course.
مش راح ننسى. راح نضلنا موجودين.
Are you going to translate that?
No.
Okay. Well, yeah, and what's fascinating for me, and something that showed in the past year and a half that I don't think anybody could have predicted, is how it will take shape in the next generations. Who would have known that kids on TikTok would now be kind of educating others on Palestine and being like, what the hell is happening? How is this acceptable? How is this happening in 2024, 2025, 2023? Like, how is this happening in the modern day? If you asked maybe the older generation what they think their kids' generation will be doing for the Palestinian cause and for Palestine, they would have told you, they may still be, I don't know, they expected, people still protest like they did many years ago, and the protesting will continue, but it takes shape in different ways according to the generation and how the different generations express themselves. And the effectiveness of this will be interesting to see how different generations do things and what they want to achieve. But it's interesting that every generation does it according to what suits them. And the effectiveness will be interesting to see. Yeah.
I think we're at the stage where we can confidently say that Israel is not long for this world.
It's not
long for this world. Israel has an expiry date. The Zionist entity is unsustainable. More than anything, it's an unsustainable project. They need the help of the most powerful empire in the world ever to enforce their existence on this land in this way.
And to enforce such a horrible existence, like such a brutal existence.
It's disgusting.
It's such a horrible existence. It's to sustain oppressing people. And that is, why would any backer or funder or lifeline, why would they want to sustain that? What do they achieve by sustaining oppressing a people? And what kind of existence is that? What kind of legacy is that? And you look throughout history, each empire or government or country that committed mass atrocities, they're remembered for that, and hopefully they will be remembered for that and held accountable for it. And in Israel, that's their legacy now. They had a legacy of apartheid, and they've changed that to a legacy of genocide. And that shouldn't go anywhere. That shouldn't be masked or like pushed under the carpet. It should haunt them, and I think it will. Because definitely generations won't forget, and we have it fully documented. We have it completely. It was live streamed to us, and we have it documented. My phone in itself has documented evidence of war crimes over the past year and a half, and before, of course. They've done something on the international stage that the world won't forget, and it's just a matter of when they'll be held accountable, how they'll be held accountable, whether the international justice system and world and countries will hold them to account.
I don't think the international justice system as it is can hold Israel to account.
Interesting. Yeah, and then if it doesn't, then that's failed as well. Then
I think we're on the precipice of essentially a completely
new world order
in which this international law and international institutions are.
Yeah, because how can they exist and how can they be built for, as they state, the prevention of genocide, and you didn't prevent genocide, and you're taking awfully long to stop this and to stop what everybody's seeing, what everybody has completely shown that we don't accept it. We completely reject this. This is the most heinous and horrible thing that we've seen in our times. And how can you not stop it? Just move the mic.
It's fine.
The whole point of it is to stop this before it's too late, and it was too late many months ago. It was too late a year and a half ago. It was too late.
In 1948, it was too late.
Exactly. It was too late when all of this started.
They killed 15,000 people in 1948. They drove out more than 70% of Palestinians from their homes.
Yeah. And so now that this is documented in a way that nobody can deny, and everybody who tries to deny it makes themselves sound foolish. And we've seen this.
Yeah.
Remember that one lady who came up to us and she was like, "What genocide?" We were like, I'm sorry, but I can pull up something on my phone in seconds and be like, Israel killed this child. Israel burnt these people in their tents. Israel demolished all of these homes and destroyed this whole entire, more than a city, a whole strip of land. This is undeniable. It's completely, nobody can even debate it. And everybody who does, they're just...
I think we're past the stage of debating Zionists. I think just exposing them for...
You're going to say,
lies.
just shut them up. Just tell them to shut up.
Well, we can't... I mean, Zionists should not be given airtime anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's like you don't give a criminal airtime to defend himself. Well, he's literally... The Zionists are committing a genocide as we speak, right? And as they commit a genocide, they're given airtime to justify their genocide, It's like a murderer going into a house, right? Breaking into a home, start killing the family members, and then coming out, right?
Being like, guys, actually...
Yeah, and then going back in.
It's not... Oh, yeah.
And continue
and then
to
going
do it.
back in, exactly.
And then come back again. And I'm like, I have to do... I'm sorry, I have to do this.
Yeah, it's not what it looks like, but I am doing it. Like, yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they should be shunned everywhere.
And they are being shunned. Yeah.
Tell me about your relationship to the Arabic language growing up.
Does it not look like I speak Arabic?
Shwaya shwaya?
Shwaya shwaya. You know that guy on TikTok who's like, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. النهارده احنا في. So my experience with the Arabic language, I think it was quite a funny one. Similar to my Palestinian identity, I kind of didn't understand why I had to speak Arabic. I was like, this just feels difficult, you know? It just...
Yeah, you have to go to school on Saturday.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm trying to chill out, man.
Exactly. I didn't have my Saturdays. I could have done a lot more. Could have done a lot more on my Saturdays than go to Arabic school when I was a kid. But yeah, it was a struggle. And then I gradually realized, okay, it's quite good to have, you know, multiple languages. After, you know, you got kind of bullied into it a little bit. I used to go to Jordan when I was younger.
Oh, right.
And they'd see, I went to the supermarket or to the little, they call it the dukkan, the little corner shop, the boss man. And, okay, so there's many factors that would give away that I'm not from Amman. And I don't live in Jordan.
Yeah.
From the way I dressed to the way I spoke, to the thing that I was getting from the shop. I used to get the fresh milk or the long life milk or something because I wanted milk for my cereal, but not many people in Jordan are having cereal because they don't really do that. And so I'd give it away a lot. And so they would charge me like 3 times the price.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's
crazy.
Yeah, because I'd be like, ana bidi hay, or like a dish hay, or like, how much is this? Yeah, my Arabic when I was a kid was awful. So I kind of realized, okay, let's improve this because it kind of goes a long way. And then I went to Palestine. I traveled to quite a few Arab countries when I was a bit younger. Each time it would improve quite a bit. You'd spend like a couple of weeks in Jordan, and you know your cousins would be like, "Yeah, your Arabic is terrible. That needs to fix up a little bit." And so it did improve. But then when I went to Palestine and spent just about 2 weeks there in Ramadan, I think my Arabic improved a lot because in Palestine not that many people speak English, and you don't want to speak to them in English. You want to know your people. You want to get to know your people on a proper level. And like I'm talking to you in my first language, you get to know people in their native language, in their first language, in their mother tongue. And so I forced myself to improve my Arabic when I was in Palestine. And it was fantastic. By the end of the trip, I was, you know, cracking jokes and stuff. I was getting us discount in random stores. I was able to bargain with random like people in the store rather than get scammed. So that was great. And I went with an Egyptian friend and a Pakistani friend. Yeah. And so my Arabic was the strongest in the group, which was very good. And so I was our translator. So it was good.
Egyptians won't like to hear that. But.
Yeah. No, great. It was great. They love Egyptians in Palestine. It was quite.
Do they?
Yeah, they love them. Yeah.
That is very surprising.
In fact,
that is very surprising.
The guy who owns the kufiyya factory in Al Khalil.
The Hirbawi factory.
Yeah, Hirbawi. Yeah. Shout out Hirbawi. Great factory. Great place. They gave gifts to the Egyptian and to the Pakistani friend, and they didn't give me a gift because they were like, "Khalas, you're from here. You don't." I don't know what the logic was, but I was low-key offended in it. Like it was not very nice. Yeah. But then, my friends got gifts, so that was great. But then, what really improved my Arabic, alhamdulillah, was being forced to know Arabic very well during this war, to be able to translate things, to be able to get news just direct, just from from Arabic sources, from the people on the ground in Gaza, from Al Jazeera, from all of the other Arabic outlets. That was the raw news. That was what really helped. So near the beginning of the war, I was like, yeah, I kept having to hit translate and stuff. But now, alhamdulillah, like, just, you know, you're just able to comprehend what's happening. You're able to speak to people on the ground. You're able to speak to many other Arabic speakers around the world. It helps with the networking. It helps with dealing with people. And
100%.
yeah.
For me, my wake-up call
Yeah.
was, I was at this, I think it was like some sort of Palestine conference or event somewhere in, I think it might have been in Turkey.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to this one older woman, and all of a sudden she stops me. She's like, "You're not Arab."
Ah.
And I was like,
Not Arab at all. Like you don't live in an Arab country, or you're not Arab.
then she said,
She thought you were a
"Inta مش
spy.
عربي. You're not Arab." And I was like, what do you mean? I'm Palestinian. What do you mean I'm not Arab?
You're like,
She's
I am.
she's like,
Identity crisis.
She's like, it's like you speak like you speak with a lot of difficulty.
Damn.
You speak
Yeah.
Arabic, and I was like, oh, okay, like that. All right. And yeah, that was kind of like a wake up call.
So she's like, she haunts you.
I had to
every
fix
time.
up. Because to be told I'm not Arab.
Yeah,
that was a new one.
it's personal. Yeah.
It was not like, oh, you live abroad. It's like,
Yeah. They say you're
Arab.
not from here, or like, yeah.
Yeah. That was a new one.
Yeah.
Because the
Faris,
thing is,
you're Arab.
thank you.
Okay. Everything's gonna be okay.
Thank you. Not that it makes so much. Like,
It does make a difference.
All humans.
Coming from you. Yeah.
I think it's just because you don't really fit in anywhere as a Palestinian.
So this is, if you want, we can end on this discussion of what it means to be Palestinian diaspora, because I think a lot of people struggle to grapple this. I think your role as diaspora is where you are, and you have to embrace that identity. You're not somebody who lived in your home country, unfortunately, but you're somebody who doesn't live in your home country because of the circumstances, because of the horrible circumstances, and therefore those circumstances, you have to acknowledge them, and you have to acknowledge where you are and the privileges that you have and the opportunities that you have at your disposal. In the UK, you can do many things. You can speak very freely and very unapologetically about many things. Yes, there are restrictions, but there are restrictions anywhere. Like, I don't think there's anywhere in the world where there's no restrictions. And that's fair. That's, you know, otherwise otherwise you'd have a bit of a lawless society. Like,
it's not, you
be a bit
can't
of a mess.
speak freely as in the UK. Like they
you can
talk
speak
about it
much more freely than many other places.
than the United Arab Emirates.
Then the UAE.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Definitely not. But what was I going to say? There are many opportunities here, and there are many tools here, and there's a nice balance between the opportunities and the access and the resources that you have, and how freely you're able to speak. Because there are other places where there's a lot more resources, there are much like flashier things, but you're not able to speak freely. And there are places where you can speak completely freely. You can say whatever you want, but there's kind of not much going on. Like, there's,
Right,
you know, you don't have the connectivity or the resources or the manpower, whatever it is. So I think there's a nice balance in the UK, and therefore people in the diaspora, be it wherever in the world, I have cousins in so many different countries, all from the same family, and we're all Palestinian, but we all have different experiences. We all have different passports. We have different languages. I have cousins in Germany, in Norway. We all speak different languages, and therefore we're all connected to a different system. I may have a cousin in Norway who's maybe working on Norway's stance towards Palestine, which has been fantastic. I may have a cousin in Germany who's dealing with the really difficult system in Germany. And then you have me and my family here. We've had our role in the UK. I work for a brilliant news outlet, which I think has, over the past 2 years and over the 10 years that it's existed, has had a very, very important role. And then I came in at this point and I had X role. I did this stuff for this company. I don't have that much family in Palestine, unfortunately. But we know people in Palestine who their role is, you know, is to be there and to resist and to resist this brutal occupation.
To exist.
To exist, exactly.
Even though resistance is a fundamental right.
Yeah.
Enshrined in international law.
And then in Palestine, existence is resistance.
Yeah.
The people who are refusing to leave their land in Gaza. This is fantastic. This is one of the most powerful things they can do.
Yeah.
And so diaspora, I think sometimes they underplay their role, and they don't believe in themselves the way they should, because everyone has their role. And if you want to look at it from an Islamic lens, Allah has put you in this position, in this place, in this time, to fulfill a certain duty.
Yeah.
And that's been the case all across history. This is yani part of our role as people, as Muslims. And then you have that duty, and it's just up to you whether you fulfill it, how much you fulfill it, how much energy, resources, time and effort you put into it. And if you don't, then sorry, it's you that lost out. It's your loss. Yeah. Everyone has their role, and everyone is most kind of knowledgeable about themselves, and you'll know what you can do, what you can offer. And yeah, it's just about thinking a bit out of the box sometimes, and knowing that you do have agency, you do have a purpose, and nobody should doubt that or kind of undermine that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for coming, mate.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time, and let's do this again, mate.
Indeed. Yeah.